We're live. Okay. Buonasera, buonasera, buonasera.
Some of the buses, but most, many workplaces, our workplace doesn't have them, and most homes don't. So yeah.
Wow. Benvenuti, Mr. Brown.
Good evening. And how are you, my brother?
I am vertical, grateful, thankful, and just in a life perspective that is enlightening and not much to complain about. A lot to talk about, not much to complain about.
Okay.
Actually, I don't have anything to complain about at all. So, because it could be so much worse. And that is what I walked away from this early morning's study with, is that we take so much stuff for granted that we fail to realize that there's a million people that would love to be in your shoes. And that in and of itself, as I look out on 3 Washington Circle most days, is a reminder. But then I cast my eyes abroad. Well, not even have to cast them abroad, just across the state, across the region, other parts of the country. And so many people still have outdoor toilets, and, can't feed their family and, don't know how they're going to make the ends meet, and dealing with all of the things they're dealing with. Why am I complaining? I am graced abundantly above and beyond that which I, can expect. So, yeah. So that's my sermonette, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Good for you. Okay.
Good for you.
Wow.
Okay. So. Okay. So this has been a rather interesting day.
Live streaming is on.
Okay. Thank you. So this has been an interesting day for me because I usually don't talk about it a lot. But Friday is, I usually it's my fasting day. And by the grace of God, I was fasting today because as soon as I have this routine that I do, I have either I do it before I get out of bed, I have, on my cell phone, I have scripture and stuff that I go to before anything else. So I set my mind in a certain direction or some sort of reading, and I usually go to bed with Oswald Chambers, if anybody knows who he is. So I went and I had read my scripture, and then I was reading, since I belong to a pastor's collective, and I scrolled down and I saw this thing that said, "We're for Donald Trump," and I was thinking, what? And that it says he needs us, and I was thinking, no. This is, this has got to be somebody just hooked this up by mistake. And then I read the entire thing, and I don't know if you can really see it. But I was just
the link.
No. So if you could see it.
Okay. I see the photos. Okay.
The photos is we need you. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a pastor's group. And what does this have to do with anything relative to the pastor's group? It says, we are the story, we are the liberty, we are the future. We need you. And then they have all these comments in Italian of Italians saying whatever they're saying about it, this is my president, and so on and so forth. And needless to say, I'm trilingual. And I'm just thinking, what's up with that? And considering the last meeting we had amongst the pastors, we said that this should not be on our WhatsApp page. And at first, I wasn't going to say anything, and I was just going to let it pass. And then I scrolled down. Then I looked at the date. This guy had put it up on Monday, and then there was another woman who put something else equally outrageous on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then he put another on Wednesday with he and Netanyahu, and then he closed it with another one. It was like, this is way too much for me to just let go by. And I realize now you can no longer be silent. You can no longer be silent and let the stuff pass, because I take it with a grain of salt to say that, so to speak. But somebody else was saying, if the church is like this, I really don't need to be a part of it, and which is what I've been saying a lot anyway. So, but I just thought, it's like, okay, Jack, here I am. Okay, and I get this from some of my American friends. Well, you don't live here anymore, so you really can't say anything. It's like, okay, okay. So, which means that my taxes and all of the other stuff they take from me, it's like I shouldn't have any say on anything. But I just thought it was interesting that this woke me up this morning, and we're having the same problem here with the education system, because they're trying to force parents to send the kids to school. And how can I say it? It doesn't really look that pretty either, because what they're doing is a lot of the teachers that don't want to deal with it anymore and have been in the ranks for a long time have said sayonara, and they're gone into early retirement or something. And so that they've said that, well, we're going to take those that are in their third or fourth year of their education major, and we're going to allow them to teach. And I was thinking, really? Okay. Not that, they could be wonderful, but it's like we have the elephant in the room, which is COVID. And then we have somebody who really doesn't know how to, has no experience with the form and teaching kids and stuff. It's like, oh, well. So.
And then to ask them to do it online, which is a whole other thing.
Oh, wait. So I mean, from the director DeVos, one of the last things she was saying was that, okay, get ready, because your kids are going back to school. It's almost as if they don't have any choice. They're downplaying the whole online situation that's, according to her. And they said they want to have bodies in the chairs. So it's like, I'm just saying, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? And so we take the most vulnerable of the species of the and the whole realm of things, and we decided we're going to push them to the front, that they've got to take the brunt of it. And everybody knows that from kindergarten on, when kids get colds and what have you, it just spreads like wildfire between the whole group. And so I just thought, this is just such a negligent situation that it's really kind of hard to take. I'd be interested in hearing what you have to say, Anna, about that, how it's going with the schools where you're at.
Well, as far as I know, things are at a standstill, and the Department of Health is releasing guidelines that kind of fluctuate from day to day. We're looking at starting our school year in 1 month for a lot of the independent schools, and the public schools will start September 8th. So they have a little more lead time.
Oh, wow.
I can't talk about my school. I've been reminded.
Yeah.
Talk about my school.
Yeah.
I know that in Fairfax County, in Northern Virginia, close to DC, which is one of the largest school districts in the country, parents have been given an option. And I looked at the breakdown because I know which districts and which
Right.
are, I know the demographics. And hi, Brenda. It was pretty split down the middle. Half of the parents were for sending their kids in person. Half of them are for online. And I have no idea what the percentages are here. But it's really scary for I think a lot of parents. They say, here come the micro schools. That's a thing that people with means and flexibility and time
right.
doing. And it just, you just keep thinking about the underserved kids. I keep thinking about the kids in Fairfax County whose parents did not make that vote because they didn't get the emails or can't read the emails or all of that.
Right.
They were automatically voted in person. It was like a default to vote for in person.
Wow.
Does that mean that they actually want that for their kids? No. Does it mean that it's even a real option for them because of child considerations? No. Does it mean it's the safest thing? Absolutely not. So, as an educator right now, I'm feeling really, really sad for all the kids who are underserved and who are being pushed and forced.
Yeah.
How can we protect them? How can I protect them? And it's so hard to imagine my old classrooms. And we squeezed 24 little bodies with little violins. And they were like this. And where are they going to go? I don't know.
Yeah. It's really my situation educationally was, the freedom of choice and all of that back in the day when there was, segregation. And then by the time I got around to it, it was, schools were starting to, how can I say, maybe open up a tad more. However, I remember when they were trying to go from an elementary to high school situation to elementary, middle school, and then high school. And so I don't know, Brenda, if you went through that one, but it was a mess in the beginning. And so they decided that, okay, the schools are not finished, and they were building them. This is when they were doing Walker and Buford. And they were still building them, and they said, we've got to find a solution. And the solution was that some of us would go to school, those that from Walker in that district, they would go to school early in the morning from 8 until 1 or something like that. And those that were going to Buford would go to school from 1 until 4. We loved it because it was like, hey, the only thing was they slid a Saturday in it that was, it's like, yeah, it's bearable because you still have your mornings or your afternoons free. And it was kind of crazy. And I remember going up to McGuffey School, which is why I know it so well. But it was organized, and then it wasn't organized. And what they tried to do was to not let you see the disorganization. And now with the amount of information and media coverage on everything, it's hard to hide that, there is information, misinformation, lack of information, and all the other things that go on. And so,
lack of choice.
Yeah.
and lack of choice.
Yeah.
This area is very good about that. People, when desegregation was happening, was supposed to happen, it was hindered by the fact that well-off people had choices. They opted to use. And
Yeah.
those who didn't have choice. Didn't have choice. I remember I spent 1 year of elementary, I think it was fourth grade at McGuffey. Only fourth graders were there. And there was only one white student, no, there were two, one white girl and one white boy. And they were both very, very poor. And they looked like poor rabbits caught in headlights. And the only reason they were there is because their parents didn't have the money to afford them a choice.
Wow.
Of being in one of the many private schools that were set up during that time to accommodate white people.
Wow.
So, well, what resonates for me in this time is exactly what happened before, and it's happening now.
Yeah.
Those who have the wherewithal to operate out of choice do. Those who don't have choices don't have choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so essentially, we're going to take a sort of a coal miner's approach to this thing, and the kids are the canaries, essentially.
And the teachers.
And the teachers, let's not forget the teachers, because
Yeah, and the teachers.
that's the law. Children don't spread COVID. They spread everything else on. It's a wonder to me why they wouldn't spread COVID.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
that is.
You know, and it makes absolutely no sense, and there's no logicality to it in that in any other environment, life and health and threat thereto is predominant, except when you're dealing with an executive order from the executive office. Now, health departments all over the United States will jump you up and down, lock you up, throw away the key. Okay, if your house looks like it might be a detriment, okay, to your child getting a glass of water. Okay, but since we got this global thing going on, or this national thing going on, and it is clear that this stuff is a detriment to every living human being. Okay, in one form or the other, because part of this problem is, and the doctors keep saying it every day of every week, we do not know the full extent to which COVID impacts the human body. And even those that have the COVID, okay, when they come back, they are not 100%. There's memory loss.
People are
There's
getting
physical body
reinfected.
issues.
Yeah.
Well, because
Right.
it's because it's mutating. It's mutating.
Correct.
The strand
Correct.
today
And
is
so
not the one we began with.
Exactly.
Right, and correct, and so the point of the matter is that, you know, why don't we just pick a spot in the Midwest, okay, move all of the gas chambers from Germany, and say y'all march on in, okay? Because essentially this is what you're saying. Now you call me over the top and excessive, but voluntary suicide, okay, is no different than suicide. Political elected official, okay, who's not sending his kid to school because his school is closed. Okay, the president's kid is not going to school. The school is closed. Okay, give me a break. Okay, and for us to have these frontline puppets up here that we call congressmen, senators, okay, who ain't feeling no heat, okay, is the insanity that, okay, well, I'll sacrifice my kid because you say he got to go back to school. We got to get the economy going. Well, I'm going to send my kid to school. My kid's going to get sick. He'll come back and bring it to somebody else in the house. Okay, the whole family ends up shut in and shut down. How am I supposed to pay the rent? Okay, because I'm supposed to be working and you ain't giving me no money. Okay, how am I supposed to put food on the table? Because you ain't giving me nothing else. Okay, oh no, $600 was too much to add to the unemployment bit. Okay, but you're supposed to work a miracle and like Rapunzel, let down your hair and grab a piece of straw and weave silk. Are these people insane? Because they're definitely certifiable.
Well,
okay?
I think
So if I'm over the top,
I don't apologize, okay? Because Ray Charles can look at this and see it's insanity.
Yeah. Well, I think what we have it's I hate to say these things run in the family, but my take on it is even more so. It's that when you're willing, back in the day of pagan worship, you know, people would, you know, take their children, you know, Baal, you know, would be there and they put the child on, you know, and you know, and sacrifice the child. This is kind of similar in the sense that, okay, you're abdicating your responsibility as a parent, and your maybe even your common sense, and you're listening not to the scientific explanations, you're listening to the political and other interests, reasons for doing these things, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to send my child back. And I just my prayers are with the parents, and I'm starting to talk to parents, you know, about that, and you know, there is definite concern about it. I'm interested in hearing Christine. Are you there?
Yes, yes.
So I'm
here.
interested in hearing what your group has come out in kind of a joint thing. So I think we could air this because I kind of want to talk about this as well as the latest with the representative in Congress that so eloquently is kind of setting things in order. But what is your group saying relative to the proactive things or the things that we can do, or a relative situation?
Well, so if you're talking about our young adults group,
your group with I thought you said that you belong to another collective that has been talking about you know, the issues relative to what's going on with COVID and, you know, Black Lives Matter.
Well, you know, my organization is called Globe Ethics. and you know, we started, this organization was founded 15 years ago when the internet was just becoming a thing, you know, when it was really becoming, when the signs were all there that it was going to explode and become a major vehicle for communication. And the founder wanted, you know, saw what we're talking about, which is, you know, the sort of inequality of access to this new tool, and wanted to create a platform and resources that would help mitigate that. And so he also saw the need, you know, in our rapidly changing world, in our, you know, just the rate of change is so fast with technology and the sharing, and that's coming from that, but at the same time, maybe the lack of in-depth exploration of certain things that people are getting used to as well. And so he wanted to highlight ethics as an important area of research, of thought, of action. And so there's a focus on applied ethics. And
can you dig into what you mean by applied ethics? Because I'd like to dig a little into that.
Yeah, well, you know, you can study, I mean, I studied ethics as a philosophy major in college, and, you know, you study the theories, the different, you know, approaches, the history, and you get into certain things very, you know, what is the good, and in very sort of abstract terms, and that can be interesting, and you can put it in everyday language as well. But applied ethics is focused on the belief that we have we have ethical choices and value-based choices to make every day and in everything we're involved in. And so when we talk about applied ethics, it's getting people together to establish some codes of practice that we can agree on, and we might have a different basis for it. We might have a different philosophical backing for that thing, but somehow we come to agreement, and that can be through different cultures and so on, and then we might need to apply it differently in different cultures. So, for example, we've come to certain understandings of
plagiarism in the world of education, for example, although there are cultural dimensions to that too that need to be, accounted for and explored. But in the academic world, there is some kind of consensus around that we agree on, and then we develop practices around, and then we develop codes of practice. So after we develop the principle, and so if we can look at that we've brought researchers together around cyber ethics and artificial intelligence and all of that, recognizing that a lot of those codes haven't been developed yet because things are moving so quickly. And so we've taken it upon ourselves, among many others, to gather eminent people in the area to say, let's research, let's think, let's bring together different cultural perspectives. Let's look at the challenges. Let's look at the realities and see how we can respond to them, to be a part of that process of developing some standards and then helping people to apply them in their institutions. And so, yeah, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to applied ethics. So I think, we just had a conference that in a way we haven't issued a pronouncement about these things as an organization, but we have opened up the discussion. And so we had a conference, an online international conference, on the topic of strengthening ethics in higher education, because that's our field of focus. But we of course recognize that there are lots of things in common between, all education at post-COVID-19. And I tell you, I think we just had that a month ago. And I tell you, in planning it, we had a sense that, post-COVID-19, like this thing is really requiring some new thinking, some new practice, and some ethical standards to accompany all of that. And we looked at just some of the topics we're talking about here and what was amongst ourselves. And so on the one hand, how do we, if we're forced to move online, how do we assure quality, how do we do it, and that is an ethical issue, how do we ensure that students don't cheat? How do we assure that teachers don't just tick off the boxes and, say they've done their job, all that kind of stuff. But then also access, but then also, okay, what are the values that we need to be cultivating in this new environment? What are the visions and the values that the societal visions and the values to accompany them that really are at the heart of the educational endeavor? And so what was so interesting and so full of such potential is that we were able to gather people from really literally all over the world. And so while I think we're in grief, we're in global grief. We're in a grieving process because in fact, even me, when we launched this conference, it's like, that's a big statement, post-COVID-19, and we're not post-COVID-19 yet, but we called the conference that, and as if it's going to end soon. So I think, and then also as if something will have changed. And so I think we're all just beginning to reckon with the fact that this doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. And we're all reckoning with the fact that whatever the case, things have changed and are changing. And so, another course we're launching is called Responsible Leadership. And we talked about this last time too, and it was developed, before this situation happened. So we're going to need to keep building building upon the foundations that we've already laid in this course, and applying it to our rapidly changing situation. But the point is that, these days, okay, responsible leadership is always needed, but it's ever more needed today because we're seeing such deficit
in leadership. And then what makes responsible leadership in the context we're in today is there are different qualities. Maybe some are the same, but there are some different ones needed, and that includes adaptability and it's just all these resilience and sort of vision, and the ability to give people hope.
The thing about COVID, the part about this era is that adaptability, resilience, those are words that we used rather facilely before this period, but we really have to operate out of them because the whole thing has changed. The whole game is changed. In theology, there's something called systematic theology.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed, but the premise of a systematic theology being written is that enough of the world understands or agrees with whoever's making the interpretation.
Right.
And it used to be that European white males were making most of the interpretation for the God talk, the theology we were doing in seminaries and colleges. And that's no longer true. When I was at Vanderbilt, there was a person who had been trying to write a systematic theology for a decade at that point. I'm not sure he ever finished because the premise upon which one writes a systematic theology has changed. In order to write a systematic theology, the majority of the world has to agree with the way you tell the story. And in the global world, that is not given. And what COVID has done is make us understand that the understandings that we want to work out, that we are used to working out of, no longer hold sway. We've got to develop a brand new language that is more inclusive than it has ever been before, because if it isn't more inclusive, if large swaths of people are not included in the narrative, in the understanding, then in fact there is no understanding and no cohesive story can be created.
Absolutely. Actually, after having listened to the representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez yesterday in her discourses and her colleagues at the House of Representatives, I began to see a completely different picture, that the narrative is different because you have other voices that have never been heard, and you have the voices of mothers. I mean, that's a new one. I think that if there was more input from the voices of mothers, I'm not talking mother politicians, but at the same time, we are talking about that. But I think that when you're hearing more of that are not pushed to say something because of the powers that be are forcing them, I think you get a different response, and then the actions are different, the narrative is different, the values are different, the ethics become clearer, and it changes. It pretty much changes everything, but it opens the conversation up. You have more possibilities of arriving at something, at a truth that's how can I say it? Maybe more universal, more of a global truth as opposed to just.
Right. And did you read about the mothers in Portland, where the 45 has sent these unknown mercenaries to police the state? What's happening is mothers, literal mothers, have come out and they're making a barrier between themselves and the police and their children. Change the whole context.
Yeah.
They say, nope, these are my babies, our babies, and you're just not gonna kill them.
And on that note, my brother, I must say, that is where we are with education and sending our kids back to school. Because essentially, essentially summing it down, very simply put, you have knucklehead on one side saying these kids go back to school, and you got your kids. And it's time for the parents and the mothers to be that guard that stands watch on the wall and say, you're not going to do this unless you have an absolute, almost 99% guaranteed process by which we cover these kids and the teachers. Okay? Because what? If you don't stand up and object, okay, evil flourishes. There's no other way to put this. Whether it be by creep, or they call it budget creep, session creep, societal creep, whatever creep you want to call it, okay, little by little. Remember the thing I used to hear all the time. It is the little foxes that destroy the vine. Bit by bit by bit, okay, we are being eaten away at because we do not just take a cohesive stand and say, look, no, just no. Okay?
John, the issue goes back to what we said earlier, though. For those, they don't love their children any less, but there are people who have fewer means who have to make a choice between going back to work and being able to pay the rent and buy food for their children, which in effect is not a choice. So many people, the truth is that schools form a babysitting, a child care, food function for many people. And so for those people who are in that spot, they've got to make the decision. They're weighing, they're balancing their child's health. Am I going to let them die earlier, or am I going to work and feed them and house them so they can live a little bit longer in the hopes that something will happen that will change the equation? So in the middle of what you're saying, it isn't as cut as dry for some people because some people don't have a choice. They want the schools open because they need the child care. They need their children getting at least 2 meals a day. That's a reality. It's a harsh one, but it's a reality.
Exactly.
When we talk about forming an ethical equation, you have to put that piece in as well. Now, policymakers may not be doing it, but when you look at the whole spectrum of choices and lack of choices, you have to factor all of those things in.
I don't disagree with you 100% if that is the case. I mean, I'm not a single father anymore, but I totally understand the perspective of wanting that not to be the case. Well, you have to make those hard choices. But here's the, if you will, the catch-22. And that is that these people are playing games. Now, they will say, you got to send your kids back to school. Until
the economy,
well, they can say economy all day long, okay? But when the teachers get sick and grandma and grandpa are sick, okay, because you're going to have COVID at your house. And then they're going to turn right around and do what these governors are finding themselves having to do.
Oh, there's COVID at the White House dining hall now, you know.
Right. Well, they're going to end up turning around and having to say, shut it down, close it up, lock it down. Okay, so me as a person who was as an essential worker, I'm on restriction. I can't travel, I can't go to for 2 weeks. If I can't go to and can't do anything for 2 weeks, I can't open my store. I can't do anything for 2 weeks. Another blow like that is going to kill off at least a third of any small and medium-sized business that was operating, that was hiring and employing essential low-income workers. They're not going to have a job to come back to. They're not going to be able to pay their rent. They're going to be getting crap from the health department, Betsy DeVos, and all these other crazy people saying, why ain't your kid in school? Why aren't you taking care of this? What? You know, being a catch-22. And I come back to it again. Senators, congressmen are not doing their job. They're not going to make any further provision to provide these people. The provision that they made for mortgage extension payments, the provision that they made for continued payments in addition to payroll, the provision that they made for restrictions on people being evicted, all of that stuff. Look, all I'm saying is this, and yes, I'm raising the alarm, okay? I still carry a federal ID, just got my new one, okay? Point of the matter is, that does not mean that I have to be insane. Look,
You cannot tell someone, I need you to go jump off that cliff over there and we'll be around to catch you on the other end. Okay? No.
Well, you can, but you ought
Parachute,
not to
you
do
know.
it.
Okay. Yeah.
But
And that's kind of what I'm saying. What I'm saying
but it's
essentially is this. You're
but it's
asking these
interesting that
people to
you're
do
proposing
that.
that, John. You're proposing that, but I do hear what the other side of that is that if you've okay, so your sons are older. Okay, if you got three little mouths that are there, and you're thinking about taking the risk, and you have seemingly, well, you always, I think you have choices, but
Okay,
you're
let me
trying.
stop you right there, Nehemiah. Nehemiah, let me stop you right there. Okay. I said, as a single father, it does not matter that my kids are 40. Okay. The point is that every time I look at a photo of my 2 and 3 year old, I empathize with every parent who has a 2 or 3 year old or a 4 or 5 year old that has to go to school. Because the point of the matter is, it does not change the heartache. It does not change the heartbreak. It does not change the tears and the cries in the middle of the night. It does not change the mental stress and the anguish and the struggle. And you going out and you take any job you can. Why? Because you want that little person to be protected, to be covered, to be shielded. Okay? So that does not change anything. Okay? If anything, if you got a heart, it makes you a little bit more empathetic for the parent who's struggling and having to go through that as a single parent. And it makes you want to go out and stand on the front line and argue for the case of, we can't do it this way. We need to do better. We can do better. Okay? And if we're going to ask them to go back to work, then put in place 6 months or a year of direct payments to them so that they can get on their feet. Because if you stimulate at the lower level, at the local level, directly to the mother, the father, okay, the single family, if you stimulate at that point, as opposed to giving billions to these multi-dollar corporations, okay, you're priming the pump. They in turn spend in their local community. They in turn will spend with the local business, who in turn can then go ahead and hire those essential workers. And you start that community to function again. Because let me tell you something about people. Just like 9/11 pulled us together, okay, when we get together in this struggle, okay, we will find a way by the grace of God to come through this together. And that's the only way we're going to get through this. Whether people got millions of dollars and they can send their kids to private schools or not, you got to bring it back to the point where, look, my kid's life is as important as your life. And yes, I want to go back to work. John, but the hurt and the pain and the anguish is the same.
John, we're not negating that. What we're saying, at least what I'm saying, is that as the Ocasio-Cortez said yesterday, this whole COVID-19 issue has has begun a day of reckoning. Okay, so there is no going back to the normal. That normal doesn't exist anymore. It can't exist anymore. It's not working for the 90% of the people that are there. So there needs to be more discussion. There needs to be more options. There needs to be new voices that are heard. And, you know, the mothers, you know, I think we're really coming to the point where, the truth be told, is the reason why Obama won was because the women went out to vote. Okay. The reason why it was changed because under Donald Trump is because most of the women that were quote unquote
evangelical women went out to vote.
They went out to vote according to what the husbands were voting, and they voted for Donald Trump. Okay, so all of a sudden we hear there's a wellspring of shaking. There's a wellspring of people saying, this is I really appreciated the discourse about ethics, because we are coming back to the bottom line. That is really the bottom line of this day of reckoning. Either you're going to live according to an ethical way of doing it, or it's just going to be corruption, because the U.S. can't take much more of what it's going through now. Okay, so here, in this situation in Italy, I can tell you that we have 25 political parties and they can never agree on anything. However, you have a prime minister that says, "I don't care. Okay, I'm taking the consensus of what the medical research is saying. Everything's going to be shut down." People said, "How dare you?" And we had that group that said, "You're taking my rights away," and he said, "No, okay, it's not happening like that, because it's for the common good, for the common good." And so all of those other people that were coming up with all of that had to find a way to put that somewhere else, because it wasn't happening. And what's happening in the States is that there's a lack of leadership. So there's the whole system of ethics and the leadership is completely different. So now what's happening is this is forcing the leaders, or people that want to be leaders, to show up and be leaders. And it's really wreaking havoc on the good old boy network, because it's not working anymore. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Anna?
Christine.
Or was that Christine? Christine, we can't hear you. I see your lips moving, but we can't hear you.
Huh.
We heard. Okay, there you go. We
Try
heard
again.
you at first, and then it's...
Okay, so now you're off. Now you're on. Okay. So did anybody want to...
I was I had a procedure done on my eyes yesterday. My head hurts. I had needles stuck in my eyes, which is not fun at all. But I was talking to the doctors and heard something that's very interesting. Somehow we got to talking about politics in the United States and what's happening in the White House, and they were almost whispering, "I've never seen this country in such a state." And one guy said he has a 15-year-old at home, and he was stunned to understand that many of the white high school students in Charlottesville High are Trumpers, which means that their parents are, which is very revealing. When we're in an age of transitioning, some people are holding on to what they think is their right or their rights, and it's reflected in what their... two things happen. Either your children take up that banner, or they decide you're lying and being a hypocrite, and they throw it all away. And a good portion of people in this area have children that have bought into their values, which they don't say publicly. Their parents don't say publicly. They just go to the polls and they vote in a Trump. And then the rest of us have to suffer with it. But then their children, either their children pick up exactly where they left off and they try to carry on as they have, or they become disillusioned and they throw the baby out with the bathwater. So we're at a very interesting intersection in society. We have an good old boys network, literally, which is trying to proliferate to find a way to grow in this new environment. And then we have the environment itself, which says, no, this is not supportable.
Your
Can you
point
hear
on
me
common
now?
good, Nehemiah, was
We
right.
can hear you now.
Go ahead. Continue.
Just lots of things, but I'll just one point now, which going back to your comments, John, and relating to yours too, Brenda, and Nehemiah, the fact that, in 2008, the sort of corporate bailout was immoral, and now, I mean, they were behind the problem, and now we're still taking the same approach. I mean, like it begs the imagination, but absolutely, like we're not disposed. It hasn't seeped down, far enough, and I shudder to think how far it's going to have to shake down or seep down before we are, you know, we are forced, or we are hopefully we are more in a greater economy of time, we're motivated to think about the common good and to think differently. I'd also like to respond more about Cortez later, but where the money's going is very disappointing and scary.
You know, it's to piggyback that. Okay, so you know when under Obama is when they did all this bailing out for the banks and so many of these companies, and so the whole idea was the consensus at the time was if they did that, then it would bring it was almost like a Reaganomics thing again. Okay, because Reaganomics was all about deregulation. If you deregulate and they're paying less taxes, then they'll turn that money around and reinvest it, and there'll be a trickle down effect. And I was thinking to myself, okay, all you need to do is take Econ 101 and you understand that money does not work like that. And there is no benevolence in greed. Okay. And so those of us in California, that was when he was governor, we realized that, okay, if you allow people and you tell them they don't have to pay property taxes, that's the beginning of the end. So all the bridges are going out. So in California, we had a whole system where the bridges were going out. You know, the roads
no good.
No good. The whole thing in California had some of the most beautiful, you know, bridges and roads and all of that. And so all of that just kind of like went out to nothing. And so and somebody's got to pay it. So how are you going to keep the great universities and the colleges and so on and so forth? It's got to come from the taxes. Okay, in Italy, I pay for what I get. I pay about 50% taxes, and I'm not having a problem with it because somebody asked me from Germany, well, what do you do when for the healthcare? I said I have national health care. Okay, I'm not concerned about paying insurance at all. And I've already been in the hospital for 9 days, and the woman assured me that if I didn't come up with a number somewhere, I'd be paying like I'd never paid in my life. And she was probably correct. And so they did a TAC and God knows everything else to figure out why I was having vertigo. And it was quite thorough. It was kind of like bring your own fork and spoon and towels and all of that stuff. Not the little cute little plastic thing they give you when you go in the hospital in the US where you take a little
It's like
tag.
everything else Italian.
When they calculate, then you bring your own. And so I was okay with that because, you know, I may not have a catastrophic illness, but when everybody's paying in, that means that if used in in a sensible way, that will be enough to keep the system going. So everybody profits from it. So you may not have it, but if you had something that happened to you and you needed to have this kind of health care, then you could be covered in that situation. So when my friend was asking, well, are you thinking about going back to the United States? And she said, what would you do with healthcare? And I said, oh, it's like,
yeah, off the scale.
I'm not saying Jesus take me now.
You remember I was there for that event.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and I can attest to that.
And so I'm telling you, there is a difference. And I'll tell you, I've had some of the best physicians in the world, some of the cardiologists that are here. You know, they don't get paid like so many American physicians get paid. And since I know at least 4 of them, you know, they're happy. You know, they have their savings, they have their home. A lot. 3 of the ones I know are just went into pension. But you know, it's like how many houses can you have, and how big the house can you have? You know, and it kind of boils down to that. But what I'm saying is, I've been having this kind of crazy conversation, and I keep going back to the Good Samaritan. It's about put the mask on, not for you, but for the guy next to you. Okay, for
you
the
know,
kid.
you were saying earlier, I've been thinking as everybody's been talking, everything is changing. And at the heart of what needs to change is how we understand money.
Ah,
Because the concept of money, as we practice it, doesn't work without debt. It doesn't work without debt, which is manufactured. Um, if we're really talking about a brand new day. We're talking about whether or not we're going to have the beloved society, the beloved community. The beloved community ought not to need money. We ought not to need money to have good health care. We ought not need money to be educated. We ought not need money to have basic human dignity. So we've developed this system, this monetary system, which of course monetizes everything, which means it organizes everything in life around whether or not this is going to make money or take money. And why do we have to do it that way? I think it's outmoded. I I think sorry. I think it's time. Let's go all the way. Let's reimagine society. Do we need money? We need it for? Does money do what we want it to do? Or does it do what some folk wanted to do and leave most of the people behind? Just a thought.
but given that, I just been following discussion relative to how the U.S. became the standard, the money
Mm,
standard,
mm,
and it's because the dollar is the standard. And when you look at the value of oil and everything else and gold and so on and so forth, it's become the standard. So what's happening now is the risk that the United States will no longer be the standard if they don't come up to deal with what's actually happening. This is this is a part of the reckoning
yes,
that's
it's a real reckoning.
happening there. So it has the possibility of going into the future, or going backwards. And I still keep I still see us focusing and coming back to the Good Samaritan, the guy who's religious, and he's just not for me, and the other people that were there in that made the choices. And then the one guy who said, this is my brother, this is my neighbor, I can't just leave him on the roadside like that. That there is indeed some kind of compassion, as if it were himself. He's going to extend himself in that kind of way. And I believe that this whole idea of the mask being it's just amazing that something so small and so simple could drive so many people just straight up through the roof. Because at first our 45th was saying it's a sign of weakness. Okay, but if you got thousands of people dying around you, and you might take this and give it to your grandmother or your child or something like that, it's like, let's be weak. Let's be concerned
Come, let
about.
us reason together.
So you tied the response that I think is something that I would like to have come up with out of this group is that there's a necessity for a new ethic,
Mm.
a new ethic, and a reasoning that helps us to handle this moment of reckoning.
But Nehemiah,
Mm.
your point is a valid one, but it's easy for everyone to, if you will, okay, to perceive it that way, okay, but unless we are willing to go to the understanding or accept the comprehension that my welfare is critical to your welfare, and your welfare is critical to my welfare, okay, that it is common good, okay, we must all contribute in some way, shape, or form in order for us all to succeed. In other words, in order for me to succeed, you must succeed, okay? And so, as Brenda said, she's right about the change in terms of the economy or economics as we understand it being tied to some monetary consideration platform. And it is changing. It is changing, which is why you got cryptocurrencies and all that other stuff we won't get into. But the point of the matter is there is a shift occurring even as we're speaking to transition from dollars. It's already occurred. And so we've occurred to credit cards and the rest, but they're moving even away from credit cards, Nehemiah, to the point of virtual, something out of Tom Cruise, Enemy of the State or some other thing whereby you have credits. Well, in fact, China's has already stepped on that, where everybody has a credit portion, okay, and for whatever purpose. But the bottom line is that COVID has and is the great equalizer in all of this. And Brenda is right. Unless we comprehend and understand, we will be like the dinosaurs and be obsoleted. Okay, out of this equation. Well, okay, also, it is that simple.
And also, it's crucial. I see this this whole voice of the communists, when black. It's strange enough to say that Black Lives Matters has come up with the whole idea that in essence, all life does matter. Okay, and that's what Black Lives is saying. All lives matter, and the point of the matter is that we've been missing this one link that within the Black community that has been not valued at all. And then you start looking at women's lives matter and children's lives matter. And so what you end up having to say is that we're being challenged to be human and to realize the connectedness of us all between brothers and sisters. And I can't imagine. I'm upset that Anna's daughter is having to deal with having to go to school in this situation. My nieces and nephews that are young are having to face this kind of thing, and it seems like we have poor leadership relative to that. I'm upset, just from a human standpoint, that we can't get to the point where okay, we agree that the economics is important, and we got to put the world back to. But I mean, what is it? People before things. People are more important than the things and the paper and all the other stuff. And we cannot afford to say, okay, yeah, we've had we're going to lose a few seniors because they said that every time a senior dies, there's a whole library that's been burned. Okay, that doesn't exist anymore. Or it's almost like this whole idea of we decide that the survival of the fittest and we're going to take these. No, it can't happen anymore. And as I was saying before, with this thing with Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, is that I believe that the thing that astounded me about her is that she said, heck no. She said, heck no, my father did not raise me to take this.
Yeah.
He didn't. And so everybody, you want to thank God for the father that raised her, which gave her the chutzpah, the extra charge, the extra charge, and then everyone else, all the rest of the people, came after. So it's almost like the dearth, the absence of leadership. It's what's happening is the leaders are there. People are starting to come. Because I was having a moment. I was saying, I can't believe this stuff is going on, and they're sending troops in, and this guy. And then I started realizing that these were not just troops; these are mercenaries that they're sending into these things. They don't have any allegiance to the chief. The what is it? The
He's
general.
practicing because I'm telling you, come November, he does not plan to vacate that
Okay,
office. And so what
absolutely.
he's doing is he's setting a pattern so that he can call in whomever he wants. He's doing it. He's practicing. It's just like with Gore in that election where he won the popular vote, but didn't get to be president. I remember
And
saying, I said they did something. They just did something. And so when it happened again with him and Hillary Clinton, I went, there you go. Let me tell you, this
set
man, we
precedent.
may call him stupid, but he's not all that stupid because he
Oh,
knows enough to do what you have to do in order to make his case. Come November 3rd, he does not plan to vacate office. He will have done it, sent enough mercenaries to enough places so that he can make the case. Oh, well, we have a national crisis, and I can't possibly leave because you see, we need to call in these troops. If you call mercenaries into Chicago, the jig is up. He's uncovered exactly what he's going to do. Chicago? Really?
well, he,
But
you know,
but listen, this is the deal: is that there is absolutely, positively, okay, a complete, total, and clear as day breakdown and destruction of every federal pillar norm that ever existed in this country. By virtue of the
And
fact,
we
number
keep
one,
letting him do
by this,
it.
but that's my point. But that's my point. By this point, some federal judge somewhere should have already issued a
He
warrant
should be
to
in
DHS that
jail.
says
Thank you.
that to DHS, don't get upset about that aspect of it where he should be, okay? Because I ain't ready to deal with him yet. We got to deal with the henchmen, the generals who
Mm.
are actually giving the order to the field troops. Because a federal court will issue a writ that says cease, desist, and pull your troops out. I don't care what the president said. He's commander in chief, but the court has the final word. And this is where my problem lies: is that the court is as complicit
Complicit.
as the senators are. They're as complicit as the senators are. By now, some Roberts and all of his sleepiness should have up and said, notwithstanding all of the stupidity going on, we're issuing an injunction because this is a clear violation of constitutional rule and law.
the mayors have stepped into the fray
Mayors
because
and governors are leading.
they are not having it. They don't need it. It just exacerbates the whole situation, and that's the whole idea behind the whole
And
thing.
we didn't call for you. They say we didn't send for you. Don't
Absolutely.
But you
come if
guys are
we
wrapping your
didn't
head
send for you.
you're wrapping your head around the wrong aspect of the story, because you
No,
have
we're
to deal
talking
with
about the
this
same
on the
thing
back.
from opposite ends of the pole,
Well,
John. We're
no,
we're
no,
not
no.
disagreeing. We're
No, I know
actually
you're not
talking about the
disagreeing.
same thing.
No, I know you're not disagreeing, but what I'm trying to get you to understand, okay, from sitting in auditing too many law classes, okay, is the point that you have to meet them at the gut cut. And that is, the Senate ain't going to do anything. So you have but one recourse, and that's where we've got to focus. Okay, we've got to give it to the senators and the congressmen who don't want to do their job. But in between time, as a collective, we've got to come together in a number that forces the court to issue that injunction. Because look, regardless of whether the Senate doesn't do it, the court can issue that injunction that forces him, forget him, that forces the general to have to disobey that order. Because at the end of the day, and this is why the armed forces got upset when he tried to pull the military onto the street, is that we don't do that in this country. Okay? And the armed forces will back up any court ordered directive, okay? Because you have three branches of government, and that is the Congress, the judicial, and the executive. And the executive is already whacked. The senators over there are just jerking people around, but you still have that one.
But John, we just said it, okay? It's okay. So we have the federal, and then we have the state. Okay, the state is like it's like the European Union. Okay, the European Union, each one has their own little thing. Okay, so California is saying over our dead bodies will he show up with folk up in here. Okay, and then the mayors are going, they've gone to court already. They've already gone to court to stop it. Okay, because they're not trying to have it. And he circumvented a lot of this because he's not using the generals. He's using the mercenary groups.
Mercenaries.
The mercenary groups from
And everywhere.
yeah, and so
Nehemiah, okay, let me help you guys understand one thing from a strategic governmental standpoint. As a person who works in this field as a part of DHS, okay, bottom line is that everybody that's on the street reports to DHS, okay, and those chiefs and administrators, okay, and I can tell you that if a court issues an order that says pull those people out and they don't pull them out, you know what's going to happen? Federal marshals are going to go over to DHS, to his office, knock on the door and say, come with us. Okay. And I can tell you, there ain't nobody over there that's pontificating, that's acting or anything else that's going to disobey a court order on his behalf, because the court has the final word, because it is an argumentative constitutional law. Now, you keep talking about the state, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm glad the mayors, I'm glad the governors are all getting bent out of shape. Okay. But the point of the matter is, do you know how much damage this man will have done? Like Brenda said, he ain't planning to leave in November. I'm not planning to have to sit around and wait to figure out whether he's going to leave in November. I'm saying put the pressure on right now for the mayors and the governors need to just shut it down. Collectively come together, form a union and say, we ain't going another further. And we're going to have our lawyers go to the Supreme Court and get an injunction. If you don't do that, you will be in November looking at Donald Trump from this side of the White House wall. Okay, that's the plan that he's going with. And at that point, he declares martial law. And then he says, oh, no, the Constitution has no validity at this point because I've declared martial law. It is a playbook straight out of something from a South American dictatorship or any other dictatorship. And all I'm saying is that, look, okay, we can talk about it. The mayors can talk about it. The governors can talk about it and everything else until they bring legal action. That is the only thing that's going to give relief. Otherwise, we'll be still having this conversation come October 31st.
And,
okay.
And John, the only thing we're saying to you, it's already happening. It's already happening.
What's already happening?
That they've all
explain already, what's already happening.
They've already started to approach. I don't want to get into the direction that you're going with it, because as a Christian, my concept of what he can and cannot do, I know it's limited relative to what he can and cannot do, and he's not as I go with the greater approach of saying that in the council of people, having more counsel and people having more voices and coming up, because the reason why the whole legislative thing has not been working is because nobody's talking. Every now and then, okay, they had Black Lives Matter. Okay, I hate to reduce it to a soundbite, but the man died. We all saw him die. We saw the guy with his leg on his neck. Okay, we saw all of that. Okay, then all of this, the fact that everything was shut down, we had to face that face to face. Okay, all of a sudden you have, the powers that be are saying, okay, how atrocious this thing is going to be. And so within the legislative branch, they had not just an opportunity to showcase and do whatever they do, but they had an opportunity to actually move and affect some change. Okay, so correct. then all of a sudden, the pressure. So what the opposition did, they infiltrated the ranks, and so people were burning, looting, and all that stuff, and so they they tried to deface the whole platform of Black Lives Matter, and people are quoting, and somebody quoted to me and said, yeah, it's a Karl Marx thing, and Karl Marx was black. So it's like, and I was thinking, you know, I mean, where you go with it, it's like, you know, but it's out there. And I thought the person was over the top, but then I began to read what they were saying about Black Lives Matter, and that it was a Marxist. They, you know, needless to say, they didn't go to Lenin, but there was a Marxist kind of thing behind that, and so that's what they're using to diffuse the whole thing. However, a lot of the young people that came into the game, they decided that, okay, we will keep pushing the envelope. Okay, and what the media started to do was to deflect off of the attention of the protesters, because they gave the impression that the protests had lessened, but in actuality, they really had not lessened at all. It was just that they were deciding to focus on Trump and all the other stuff. Okay, so then you come face to face with the possibility of the people in the House of Representatives, in the Congress, of standing up and saying something. They said something for a minute, and then they had that moment where they're all on their knees and, you know, dropped on a knee and so on and so forth. Okay, but nobody had the righteous indignation of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that said, I am ticked, I am through. Okay, and so then she rallied, then the troops rallied around her because somebody took a stand and, you know, did some real energy, and it was a young person that said, I'm willing to risk it. You're not scaring me. Okay, so in the democracy, okay, this is really how it works, because what's happening in that sleepy tower that's there is a lot of people are afraid to speak or don't speak for whatever reason they are. But then you get the young senators that are coming out, or the Congress people, and they're saying, okay, no, we're articulate. We know exactly what we're saying. We're talking everybody and everything is at risk. We are through with it. Stop. Okay, this is a new day. It's time for a different reasoning, a different ethics, and the whole thing. And I think until this, for me, when I was watching, I said, Patrick Henry, okay, it's like, you know, give me liberty, give me death, you know, turn the thing over. I've always said that, you know, when you know, what is it, Poli-Sci 101? It's when it's not working anymore, you turn the thing over, and, you know, you got it. One of the things that, you know, you might say, but they still keep making the same mistake. In Italy, it's like, okay, you know, you got them in there and they start doing stuff that stinks, that you have a vote of non-confidence, they throw you out. It's done.
And that's my problem, Nehemiah, is that this is like, as Tom Ridge, the original director of VHS, said, okay, this is not a reality TV show. Okay, VHS is not a reality TV program where you can just do what you want to do. This is not the president's personal militia.
But John,
the point of the matter is,
John, this is what I want. I want to steer clear of that one, because the point that I want to make with these discussions are solution oriented, where we actually see that we don't miss that what's happening is there is a movement afoot where people are saying, in little by little, when the women say, listen, read the story of Esther, when you know, the king was doing his thing and so on and so forth, and, you know, his cronies, they were having a party, they had 120 days of that, and the women said, oh, we're going to have one too and have our thing and get it together. And so the kings they had a little too much to drink, and they said, bring the ladies out, the showpieces. Okay, you know, his wife was beautiful, and he had told everybody she was beautiful. You know what she said? I ain't coming. I ain't coming. I am not coming. And so he freaked, and everybody that was in his camp said, you need to do something about this, because if she's not gonna do it, then every single household in this domain, all of the women are going to think the same thing. And this is what's happening. And the reason why I'm so content with this is that it's the empowerment of people. And if I can say anything about this time that we have, if we are able to empower and discover the power that we have, if we can leave from the conversation, because we know, okay, as I sent a few people a video where this preacher was saying, he said, y'all go out there and eat grass. And they had all these people out there on the lawn in front of the church eating grass. Okay. Mm-hmm. Brenda and I was saying, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that at the White House. But, that's a different biblical story of Nebuchadnezzar. Because Nebuchadnezzar said he was the one, he was God, and so on and so forth. And God said, not on my watch. Okay. And so we saw him, the last time we saw him, he was out eating grass out back, And so, but what I'm saying is it's that there is a necessity and a time to empower, because believe it or not, there are people that have not decided to move or say or do anything. It's, believe it or not, they're just saying, that we've been lulled. He said, this is gonna pass, and all of a sudden it's like 6 months, brother, and it's still here, and it's getting worse. And so all of a sudden you get that rush that, okay, so now I need to do something. I need to do something. And so what I'm saying, that it's my hope that as Christine was saying, was the whole idea, if we come up with something, with a statement that talks about a new ethic, because the new ethic is, it's true that this person, we see the monster coming and we know how he's working, and we're not unaware of how it functions, but at the same time, we are not about to give up our power. We have power to deal with this thing. And parents, and see, this is the situation with a lot of, I believe, a lot of the people that are essential workers, and so they don't have the sense of having the power or choices, and so on and so forth. And I think just the sister getting up and saying, okay, stop, okay, no more.
No more. And that is the point. Even with a lack of choice, lack of resources, we each have some inherent power. And to round it out, part of what John is saying, and I think what we're all saying, is that we all have some power. It's stronger if we work together, but it's a lie that we don't have any power. We do have power, and we can increase our power if we all just say, no, we're not coming. You can have a party if you want to. When I had my stroke, my body, for the first time in my life, my body betrayed me. It said very clearly to me, where you going? Now, if you want to get out of that chair and go over there, if you can do it without us, help yourself, but we ain't coming. And I'm going, what? And my body meant that thing. And I went, oh. There has to be a time in life, in politics, in money circumstances, where somebody says, no, that's not going to work for me.
We're back to a Rosa Parks moment. We're back to that, where the woman was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then the whole thing is, I'm not moving. I'm not, and it's interesting how the one of the songs is saying, I shall not be moved. Like a
tree planted by the waters, I shall not be moved.
And I believe my prayer is for the educators and for the people of like minds, that that we come, and if we don't do it today, hopefully the next time, is that we actually come up with a statement that says, within this giving people, because the thing with what's happening now is the conversation, the narratives, discussing the narratives, and the whole thing is such an empowering thing for people. It is such it's such an empowering situation that you get to talk to other people about how you're feeling, your fears, your trepidations, the whole thing, because there is there is that power of one, and then where it says the threefold cord is not easily broken, there is a power that comes along with all of that, and I think it's really necessary. But I do see it's a day of reckoning. We go from new ethics to, as I said before, a new ethic to reasoning that helps us to deal with this moment of ethics. Go ahead, Christine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
go
Okay.
ahead,
can
go
hear
ahead.
I
you.
keep getting kicked off. I don't
Yeah,
know
just
why
talk, just talk,
this system doesn't like me, but
just go talk.
okay. I just, you know, I think that there's a time and a place. Can you hear me? I'm
Go, just
talking.
keep
Yes, we can hear
talking.
you.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Keep talking. Keep
We
talking.
can hear you.
I'm talking. Can you? Okay. There's a time and a place to talk about, strategy and tactics of specific situations. I appreciate what you keep, bringing us back to, Nehemiah. One point I want to make, which is, empowerment and positive directions, and that we can be setting ourselves in together, and and then coming together and suggesting things to be doing together, um, and with others, and expanding this message. And how can we, what messages do we need today, and how can we go about it, and how can we challenge and encourage? One point I just wanted to make is that I think that we are rightly concerned with the leadership we have. Um, and at the same time, there is a context which allowed that leadership to rise. And so I think even when we look at Black Lives Matter, that's eminently clear. We have systems in place. And then many of which have been getting progressively worse in some ways, while with some gains here and there. And so I think that one of the things that one of my friends shared Alexandria Cortez's comments on Facebook. I haven't looked at the whole context before and after, only her moment of coming forward. And my friend shared this, saying, whether you agree or disagree with this woman's policies, take a moment to listen to how she responded in this situation. And I liked that, because that is where we need to go. We need to start being able to understand that we may not agree with each other on the interpretation of every event, but there are points of contact. And I think Black Lives Matter, when you get to the essence of it, is bringing that up. And I think what she said definitely did it in the same way. So when she's saying, and so you see also mature, she's young, but has a maturity, whether we agree or disagree with her on some points. She has a maturity about some things, and we have to agree on this. And many of these leaders in the Black Lives Movement, have this maturity, and it comes through grappling with the history, grappling with the pain, and yet feeling a sense of call, feeling a sense of hope, feeling a sense of responsibility. And she said, "I'm not deeply shaken or wounded by the comments this man made today." She might have been, but in this case, I do believe she wasn't. But at the same time, she says any woman, has dealt with this in one way or another, some more than others, and I think women are responding because it's just so true. And I think people of color are responding because this is just so true. And what both, moments are doing for us is that if, she has processed it emotionally, I think spiritually, historically, intellectually, And so she could give a very, impassioned and but yet calm, and
Clear.
I would even clear, intelligent, explanatory, loving. In the end, it's loving, because she's not giving that same disrespect back to the man, but she's not putting him outside of the space of redemption, or learning, but she's saying clearly what he's done, and that this and that I'm grateful for this moment, because actually it's just such a clear revelation of what we have been doing for so long, what the system has been doing. And
Yep.
that and so I'm sure this is a good guy in a lot of ways, right? Like, I'm sure he has his, I'm sure he's not a he it was a sin, it was wrong, and it represents something deeply wrong in him and in the old boys club, and it and amongst in the mentality. But we don't know him, he loves his children, whatever. But there's something that he himself has not been enlightened to how deeply he's been how deeply he's been
and she put
formed,
him and them and everybody on notice that this is no longer acceptable.
And so exactly, and so
it never was, but we're not accepting it anymore.
Right.
So
And
you
so
are going to have to change.
Right. And so the hope that comes there, the reason why, like, my friend and her friends on Facebook were saying, I feel so empowered listening to this. It is exactly the word you just said, Nehemiah. And then we can move to the Black Lives Matter, very similar stuff, is that it's not only, I think it's both, just to hear a public person both explaining things so clearly, maybe that people can't explain fully for themselves, or haven't heard such a good explanation. Hearing that young woman's voice, in a context like that, that's good. That's already good. But it's also this sort of hope that is just what you're articulating, Nehemiah, that there's this potential to truly move somewhere different. And so I think that, analyzing the best leaders in some of these movements, we see people who are less best, but to look at the best leaders in these movements, and there are some indications in those places about what this new ethic needs to be. And I do think one point is that we do want to come to some clear principles, but then on many points we're still going to have, like she herself said, believe it or not, I can deal very well with many of my GOP colleagues, like we are not enemies. We are together in this enterprise of trying to bring a country forward. We have genuinely different ideas about things, but we're not going to grow. We're not going to grow unless we give each other the space to grow, learn how to talk to each other, do in fact respect each other, and develop codes that encapsulate how to do that in certain contexts.
And the other thing that she said that I thought was how can I say, implicit in it. She said, "This is our job. We have a responsibility to those people at home that voted us in here to do something, and this is the call that we need to respond to and do." Well, she pretty much said, "It's time to do the right thing." Okay, it's no longer. And so the interesting thing that I thought was just overwhelming in what she was saying was she allowed, because she was able to stand, then there was
Others
a whole
could.
continuity of women and men that were able to join the chorus, as we might say, and create a chord that was not, you just couldn't break it. You couldn't break it. And the other side of it, she invited everyone to go deeper by saying that what you did gave license to any man to treat your daughters and your wife just like that. When I heard that, that was just, that was just like a lightning bolt that hit
Yeah.
that, because we're not in so many of the conversation that we have presented, and I must say that she doubled up with Representative Presley, who eloquently shaped a lot of the rest of it. But what we tend not to hear is the full bore, the full effect of what something like this does, the ripple effect that it has,
Yeah.
because so much of the conversation is just it's so shallow. It's so shallow. It's so steeped in something, that's a special interest or what have you, that we're not invited to think any deeper. We're not invited to reason. It's a whole thing about
Mm.
just the jargon, just the momentary thing.
Let
But
me say this. Um, we use a lot of religious ease sometimes. Um, we sometimes we use our words too narrowly. For instance, the word shalom we take to mean peace, but it doesn't mean just that. It means the space to be and become in. And what Ocasio-Cortez did with that moment, she and Presley, was give us, she says, I'm going to be in this space, but I'm not taking up all the space. I'm giving space for you to be and become in as well. And that's a goal for folks who seek to be on the planet together. It's not enough for me to be. We've got to figure out how to be together. And because we're living organisms, we just can't be in the moment. There has to be the space to become, the space to grow, to be and become. That's a fulsome understanding of life and abundant life.
I love that, and it's love is at the base of it. And do you know what's very interesting to me? I have some friends and colleagues who are movers and shakers, advising top business leaders about how to become, more sustainable and ethical business leaders, in their various industries, how to, strategizing with UN leaders, this and that and the other, and also educators, and whole festivals are being organized by these people, most of whom are very much outside of the institutional religion in general, and many of them come from a Western setting, and so it's, they have Christianity in the roots somehow, but did not see this in practice in their Christian communities. And in fact, this one festival, it was about well-being, leading well-being. It was a few years ago, and leading well-being, and the whole image there, they were preaching, if I may use the word, love, as the solution, and unabashedly, like they were. And I was, I think, the only person there that I knew who was a professing Christian, and I just thought, what a tragedy, what a tragedy. And yet, how interesting, that people are recognizing this. And yet it needs definition. It can be sidetracked and misoriented so easily. And so this idea of because love brings together justice and mercy. Love is full of
Covers a
tenderness, and
multitude of sins.
yes, it is compassionate, it is patient, and at the same time it is firm, and it is, and it knows when to be what, it's like
It's
Jesus.
real.
It's real, and like Jesus. And that part of the problem with that white-faced Jesus that the world has received. But not the whole world. I have a nice wood carvings of Chinese, characters from China. There has been this enculturation in every culture as well, to be fair. But still, the dominant image, this white image, part of the problem of that is that part of the many problems, but one is that we are not educated about the righteous Jesus, making a scene and throwing over the money changers who are cheating the people. And not that money is necessarily the problem, but the misuse of money, and particularly in God's house. And the trampling on the poor, the abusing of these people, and he stood. So that aspect is there, and at the same time, it was all from love. It was from love, and so I think it's a very kind of difficult, and yet it can become simple for us, that we speak the truth, and we help each other have the courage to do it, and we help
and check our motives.
But we check our motives, and we never sort of we call out the problem, but we never put the person, past the point of redemption. We never put the situation outside of the point of redemption. There's a place for everybody to grow at all times. And that is also where the Black church has made and is making such a very profound and important contribution, to the survival and any healing of our nation that has happened, and that can happen. And the gospel music represents that in so many ways.
I totally agree. We have run out of time. Anna, would you like to say something before we close?
I do. I so appreciate everybody's words, and talking about the power of love, and the power of love for our children is something that everybody can feel, that's about to be affected by the return to school. Just kind of tying that up, I feel like that's the like battering ram, if you will, that's going to push through some kind of voice, some kind of change. And I'm so reinvigorated to stick up for the kids and to stick up for educators, knowing that we're all operating from that place of love for them.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to thank everyone for participating today. I don't know if you're up for it. We can do another Friday. I think it's a very important thing to do. So if we're all up for it, we could try another Friday. But until then, a bientôt.
I was under the understanding that you wanted to do this as an ongoing series. I didn't know there was a time cycle that you were running a series television show.
We're taking it as
it goes,
as it comes. Okay.
Blessings.
Okay.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.
Salute to tutti. Ciao.
Let's go, Kwame.